bienvenidos and welcome to Mija on the Mic, where Mija, interviews daughters of immigrants, immigrants themselves, and daughters of refugees who are making moves in their industries around the world. Today, I am so excited to invite radio and podcast host of one of my favorite shows, Latinos Out Loud. She's also a writer, producer, comedian, actor, and New York Latina voice talent extraordinaire, Rachel Strauss, aka Rachel La Loca.
¡Wup, wup! Hola, mijas, ¿cómo están ustedes? Hola, mija.
I
It's
love
so
it.
nice to be here.
Thank
Hi,
you so
Lori.
much for joining me, Rachel. This is so exciting, and it's so great to have another New Yorkina on the show. We
Let's
met.
go, New York in the building. We loud and proud. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, that
Yes.
was like, there's a frog in my throat. That was not very New York of me. Let me give you a better
Actually,
one.
it might be more New
Ooh,
York than you think.
ooh.
It
I'll
was
also give you a yer. Okay.
it's giving New York radio voice, which I love.
Yes. Good morning, Vietnam. Woo!
It's so amazing to meet you and also have you on the show because we work together on La Cabina Telefónica for Spotify. Rachel voiced a
Yes.
number of characters on the podcast, including one of my favorites, Anastasia. But we're going to
Yeah.
talk about the show, all of your voice acting, and tons of other stuff so that listeners can get to know you better. We're going to start off with telling us a little bit about your culture. Tell me, where is Rachel from? What is her deal? She's La Loca, but where is the Loca from?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out, Mija, because I don't think I'm from any of the planets that we know of. Okay. But on my birth certificate, I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And my family, we are a multiracial, mixed race family that I'm so proud of. My mother is from La República Dominicana, Dominican Republic. And my father is from Brooklyn. Yeah, he's like as Brooklyn, somewhere down the line, Russian, Eastern European, Jew, mixed in this smorgasbord sancocho. So I like to tell people that I am Jew-Minican because I completely love and respect all of the cultures that make me me and my family who we are. And I celebrate both sides quite often. You'll often hear me talk about, merengue, and then I might hit you with a mazel tov at the end.
I love
So
it.
that's a little bit about me.
What does that look like at home? Is it like bagels with mofongo? What is it?
You got it. It's exactly that. My whole life growing up, it's like pastrami sandwiches, maybe some arroz con gandules on the side. Yeah, it was always these just fusion. Like that's the thing. You go to a restaurant, it's like Japanese fusion, but like in my house it was like Jewish fusion and Dominican fusion. The cuisine was always banging. My mother makes the best, like pastelón de arroz, but she could also tear down and make some matzo ball soup, y'all. Okay?
That's
which is
amazing.
which is the Jewish penicillin. So like it depends on the ailment. If I have an ailment that requires like un sancocho, you know what I'm saying? That like my abuela would teach my mother, like with all the like home remedies and the remedio casero to put in there, or the situation could call for matzo ball soup. You never know.
You never know. And your mom learned both, and she was able to kind of pass that on to you. That's amazing.
Yes, but I'm not such a good cook, mija. I'm gonna tell you right now. Like I try, yo trato, but I could bake. You know what I mean? And maybe I can make a chicken schnitzel here and there, but but like my mother definitely owns the rights. She's got the bragging rights to all the cuisines that we eat and enjoy in the household for sure.
That's amazing. And I would like to know, like, what feels the most like home to you? Because obviously, being a New York Latina, but also being of Jewish origin, it's like a huge mix. So, is it Brooklyn? Brooklyn is the most home like to you? Where do you feel like I estoy en mi casa?
I do feel like Brooklyn is my home. Yes. I always tell, the saying, like you could take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take the Brooklyn out of the girl. And this Brooklyn girl, I mean, the Brooklynisms just kind of come out. Forget about it. There's one. But like, I do feel me siento en casa in Brooklyn. And actually, mija, it's because in Brooklyn, there's so much diversity. You
Mm.
know, I mean, New York City at large is a wonderful city. I love my city. I love the diversity that it presents. But growing up in Brooklyn, I really got to see un chin de todo.
Mm.
My friends to date We are a melting pot ourselves, okay? And I appreciate that. And I want my children to appreciate that too. So, although I'm residing on the Upper East Side of New York City right now, Brooklyn is in my heart, and we go to visit grandma and grandpa almost 2, 3 times a week, I would say.
Oh, that's
And I
nice.
want them to experience that diversity. To add to the mix, no pun intended, my two boys also have Rican in them. So they're little Jew mini Ricans running around here. And I want them to see not only like in media and everything that they consume, I want them to see themselves, but also in our daily lives. I want them to know that this is the beauty, this is the fabric of New York City. This is how we got each other's back, because we're all so different, but also so much alike.
Oh man, I love growing up in New York for that reason because everyone is so exposed
Yes.
to all these different cultures. But there are some things that, sometimes clash. I wonder if there's anything between the two cultures that you had in your household where sometimes it was like, no, my way is better, or, how were there any little things that would cause disputes?
Ay, mija, sí. Ay, Dios mío. Where do I start, mija? Okay, so
I'm
I'll
in
start.
chisme.
Yo tengo el chisme. I got the tea. I'm sipping on coffee, but I'm gonna give you the tea. Okay, so like I know, dating back to when my parents even hooked up. Okay, can we start there for sake of timeline?
Yeah.
Back then, as I've been interviewing my parents, Mija, as podcasters, everything that like I love goes through this mic. My kids, my parents, I have hours and hours of audio footage because their story is just incredible. Their love story, their story of interfaith and intercultural marriage, all of that. So I started interviewing them, and they shared with me that when they hooked up and when they decided to get married, both sides were like, oil and water. Que no? Oy, Gavalt, no, this is not going to work. What do you mean you're going to marry a Catholic who's from the Dominican Republic? I don't even know where that is on the map. And I'm so exaggerating, but there was clashing from both
Mm.
sides of the family. And y los dominicanos are like, ven acá. Ese judío con los ojos verdes, tú te vas a casar con él. Ay, que no. My grandmother was like over my dead body type stuff,
Oh
because
wow.
just clashing. But they did it anyway.
Romeo
Kind
and
of like
Juliet.
Romeo y Julieta, totally. It's more like, actually, it's like Moishi and Julieta. But they made it work, and I just loved how the family saw that love overcame.
Mm.
Love what was it is what was at the core. It still is. 54 years later, they've been married.
Wow.
Yeah, but love is what taught all the families that this could work. This can happen. And 3 children came as a result of it, whom are loved and embraced by both sides of the family. Now, back to the clashing. Absolutely. There's times where, like, I'll go to my tia's house on the Dominican side, and she's like, pa tú estás muy gorda. Like, oh, tú tienes, you're eating too much plátano maduro. But then I go to like my aunt's side on the Jewish side. It's like, oh, you're too skinny. You gotta eat. What's the matter with you? You gotta eat some more gefilte fish or something. So yeah, there's clashes of cultural, I guess, understanding what
Mm.
we should look like, how we should act. I find a happy medium. I somehow always land in the middle where
Mm.
it's like, okay, I can embrace the colors of the Dominican flag, but I also have the Star of David and my name in Hebrew tattooed on my back. There's always been in my head, I think of like, oh, I did check all the boxes. I am representing for everybody. But of course, there were further clashes with like language. My
Mm.
mother told me stories about that when she first met my father. She didn't know English, but he was studying to be a Spanish teacher. So he
Ah,
knew Spanish, but it was more like, hola, ¿cómo está? Quiere ir a la película conmigo type
it was
accent.
Anastasia. It was
It
like the
was.
character. That's where it came from. Oh my gosh, that's the inspiration. We have the backstory now. Oh my
Now
goodness.
you know. Now you know how I became Anastasia in La Cabina Telefónica.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so cool. I want to get to Anastasia, but I want to ask you one question before that. What is
Sure.
the role of Spanish in your life? Because I always ask that to every Latina in the US because it's always a different, complicated relationship depending on whether your parents felt proud of their language, if not, whether your parents are mixed or not, whether. you were able to speak it in your neighborhood at all? So what is Spanish to you?
That is such an interesting question. I have to give this a little bit of thought before I give you my spiel. So, yeah, the language, mija, you hear a lot of people say, like, oh, just because you don't speak Spanish doesn't make you any less Latina or Latino or Latina, A, E, I, X, Y, Z, however call yourself.
Yeah.
There's so many terms now, mija.
Yeah.
Pero Spanish for me was important across so many different facets of my life. Okay. One, I made a career for a long time in marketing, multicultural marketing. So I was working for People en Español magazine, which is in Spanish. So this
Mm,
half Jewish girl had to read in Spanish and recite and write advertorials and all the marketing stuff that we did in the department in Spanish. So
mm,
it made my father very proud, the Jewish Spanish teacher, and it was something that I had to use every single day. Pero mija, I must be honest. Now that I'm not working in that space, como está saliendo, it's like it's not as fresh. I sometimes I can't find the word and I
mm,
feel a little less Latina. I'm like, my God, I don't even know how to complete this sentence right now because I'm not using it on a daily basis like I once did for my career. But the
mm,
language is so important to me. I'd be a hypocrite if I said that I didn't want my kids to do like how grow up how I grew up. The lessons from the Spanish teacher or the street slang from the Dominican family when we go to visit. So I
mm,
really want to ingrain that in my kids. Spanish is super important. It doesn't define how Latina or I am or my Latinidad, but it sure does make it feel better. When
yeah.
I'm able to go to my mother country, when I'm able to go to DR, which we're planning to do over Christmas for the first time with my kids,
Oh,
I want
amazing.
to. I can't wait, mija. I can't wait to go to La Casa de los Dulce in Santo Domingo. See, I have such a sweet tooth. I'm heading straight to Helados Bon, which is the ice cream chain in the country, and then La Casa de los Dulce en la capital, which is where they sell all the dulce de leche, dulce de coco that you can imagine. So
Amazing.
teaching them Spanish and exposing it to them is very important to
Mm,
me. Um, Now again, like nowadays, I'm in New York. Everybody speaks Spanglish. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So I have to work on it. Like I don't want it to dissipate. I don't want it to leave because I feel like it is an important part of my culture. I
Mm,
appreciate the language. I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but it's very important to me. And communication too. This is how the Dominican family sometimes operates too. Like yo tengo familia que they've been living here for decades and they don't really feel the need to
yeah,
fully
they don't
speak
need
the
to speak
language,
English at all. My dad never learned it really. I mean,
right?
yeah, it's been a long time, but
Because they're still living in their cultural enclaves of
yeah.
Washington Heights and Inwood and the Bronx, where everyone alrededor is speaking Spanish, you know. But I hope that answers your question. I feel like I went all over the
No, because
Spanish
it's
language
map.
map.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it really is that. It feels like a map, and everyone kind of finds their place in it depending on their relationship with, like, even their own feeling about how well they speak it too. Like, I remember growing up, my brother and I, we spoke different levels of Spanish. Like, my Spanish, it was my mother tongue, but by the time my brother was born, I spoke English, and so we spoke English together, and so he started speaking English more with me, and he would be on the bus with my mom, and he would reply to her in English, and she would reply in Spanish, and people would look at them like, "What do you? That's incredible.
Pick a
How,
language. What's
how do you
going on here?
understand each
Yeah.
other? What? How do you
Right?
understand each other?" But yeah, but that's. I mean, it just depends on like how you end up dealing with the language personally. But it's so interesting how you want to pass it on to your family. And something that I'm curious about is, how are you doing that? How are you passing it on to the next generation? So much of this show, so we started the show 4 years ago now, and
Whoop
it's all
whoop.
been, yeah, it's been about like the questioning around how you can pass culture on like generation to generation across borders, across time. You know, 3 generations out, will your kids really have that relationship with DR? Will they have the relationship with the Jewish heritage? And like the fact that you have to ask yourself that is, it's a privilege that we have, that we can be like, okay, maybe I want to pass this on and I can do this and I have the power to do so, but like, how do you do it, right? So I'm curious,
Yeah.
like, how are you kind of exposing your kids and that next generation to your background?
I think there needs to be a conscious effort made, you know. To your point, a lot of these lessons came to me organically growing up, just simply off of visiting family and hearing the stories and la sala, you know, the oral traditions being passed down. But that's not taking place too much anymore. Diantre, we had a pandemic that took away years of visiting and hearing stories from our elders. Just all, social media, like we're just not visiting our families the way we once did. We're FaceTiming with them, for crying out loud, nowadays. So I make, or I try, Mija, God is my witness, I try my hardest to evade that like technological part of it, that technology element, and go back to the roots sometimes. Go visiting family, listen to those stories. I don't mind hearing them again, from my mom or my tío, who's a historian, who's a Dominican historian, a published author. Those are the people that I want to see. Not only because they serve good lemonade and good food, but because I want to hear the stories and I want my children to hear them too. So there's that. The art of storytelling, which you and I love so much, don't we? There's that. There's also these museums. I'm in New York City. Sadly, there's not this like Dominican museum that I sort of love and have in my head. And, I'm breaking ground on it, and maybe a decade from now myself. It'd be nice to have a museum of Dominican heritage. But there's other institutions that celebrate Latino pride, and I take them. There's the Coqui Club for little kids at El Museo del Barrio here in Spanish Harlem. There's all these cultural celebrations around the Dominican Independence time. We went to the parade. Mommy marched in the parade. Mommy was an ambassador for the Dominican Day Parade. I have that thing behind me. So I explained to them what that means. What does it mean for mommy to be marching on Fifth Avenue celebrating Dominican pride in a city where Dominicans just became, the number one Latino segment. So it's important for those little bits and pieces to like come together so that I can formulate the story that I'm trying to teach them and pass on to them. What else do I do? Um, Actually, I mentioned something before that I'm doing for the first time. I'm really trying to save my pennies and take all of us to DR this Christmas. They have not been yet. The boys, they're 8 and 5. And for me, it's been a few years too. And I am tired of going to like these weddings and staying on campus. You know what I mean? Like, mazel tov to everybody getting married. Okay. Felicidades. Pero for me, it's kind of important to experience the culture while in DR and going off campus. You know what I mean? Like, we got to go to the Cuevas del Pomier in San Cristobal to see the Taino etchings, okay? The Taino Indians had their ceremonies in these beautiful caves that are still in existence. I want to take them to the Museum of Amber. Yeah, it sounds kind of boring, but amber is one of the precious things that you could find in Dominican Republic. And there's all these like, from the Paleozoic era and like all the dinosaur times, like there's a museum dedicated to this. Like, that's fascinating to me. In little Dominican Republic, there's all these like mosquitoes stuck in amber from like the times that the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah, I've been to it. It's amazing. It's small, and if you walk through it and blink, you'll miss it. But there is a museum of ambar in La República Dominicana. Yeah, so like those are the places that for me also, you think about, wow, my ancestors were here bathing and teaching their children how to like wash clothes in the river,
Mm.
and the ceremonial etchings on the cave walls, so all of that is important to me. So when we go in December, ucha, I have to put together a whole itinerary, and everybody's gonna have to put on their best walking shoes because we're gonna like
Walk
Forrest Gump
everywhere.
DR. We're going con walking sticks y todo. We're gonna find all those amazing places that again just make our history so vibrant. And I want to
Yeah.
share that with the kids so that they can share it with their kids. And we could keep this thing going on and on and on.
This is incredible, and so much of it is about your active decision to do so, and like really go in and say this is the story, and go ahead and tell the story, and not be afraid of all of the things that come with it, like all of the baggage culturally as well, like all the good things and the bad.
Mija, if I could just interject, you say the good and the bad. Yes, the Dominican Republic and also my Eastern European side, we have such beautiful stories to share. But then there are also those stories of Hitler and Trujillo that are also part of the fabric, right?
Hmm,
That
exactly.
that that still have repercussions to this day. There are still people talking and not talking about Trujillo because of the impact this dictator had on our country, and the way, like my tío, the historian, has written many books. We have to tell our children about these stories. They need to understand the triumph and also the tribulations, and people like las hermanas Mirabal and the revolutionary sisters of the Dominican Republic, those women who fought for freedom at a time where women were not supposed to be doing any of that stuff. Que que? Que que? So I haven't even begun to talk about En los tiempos de las mariposas, the hermanas Mirabal. The kids are a little young, but I
Yeah.
can't wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait. That's going to be another DR trip where we go to visit their home, which is now a museum. And I could talk to them about all the attempts that were made to bring Trujillo's reign of terror to a close, failed attempts, but again, that just make us take a closer look at the democracy of the Dominican Republic and just what politically it has gone through and what it continues to go through. I'm not even going to get started on that, mija, pero that's all part of it. And Hitler, the stories, one of my favorite, it's so crazy, but the Diary of Anne Frank is one of my favorite pieces of literature. It's just so simple, a little girl's diary, during the time of Kristallnacht and during the time of World War II. It sounds like such a simple premise for a literary piece of gold, but as you read it and you see what oof, I'm getting emotional. Stop it, Rachel. What? But as you read it, you understand the plight, the scary times this little girl faced, and all the other little girls that she was friends with on that night of terror when it all began. And that's also a deep part of my history. There's a Jewish museum here on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We haven't gone yet, but it's on my list. And I can't wait to explain to them exactly what all the things we have to be thankful for, our forefathers, our ancestors that came from Russia and Eastern Europe to through Ellis Island. Girl, Mija, so get a load of this. I know I talk so much. So get a load of this. My last name, Strauss, was
Mm-hmm.
actually originally Straussovitz, Vitz at the end. But some guy at Ellis Island was like, your name, too long. We're going to cut the Vitz. Now you're Strauss. Go on. Welcome to America. And actually, I'm a little thankful because if I was Straussovitz, diantre, I'd be Rachel La Loca and Strauss Muniz. No, Rachel La Loca Straussovitz Muniz. And that's way too long. There's not too many like boxes in the forms for me to
No,
like
it's
fill
too
that out.
long. That's so wild because you hear so many stories about Ellis Island and how people's names were changed, but you never actually meet someone whose name was changed. You're like, wow, Straussovitz, that's amazing. I love
Us,
that. And
yeah. The Strausses of Brooklyn were once the Straussovitzes. Yeah.
that's crazy. One thing I want to ask you is who in your life has impacted you the most? So, would it be your family member or someone that you spoke to as a child that really inspired you? Because, you're La Loca, Rachel La Loca, and you're now like a storyteller and you're a voice actress and you do so many beautiful things with your voice. So, who was the person that kind of inspired you to take the stage a little bit? Because we're often taught, girls are to be seen, not heard. Be quiet. Don't necessarily be too loud. But you're not afraid to do that. And so I'm curious, who, maybe somebody in your multicultural experience who inspired you. Do you know? Does anyone come to mind?
Mija, a few people do. I'm sorry to make my answers so layered, but I don't know if I can pinpoint one person, Mija.
Go
Um,
ahead.
I think there's a few. I want to shout out my dad. My father, who was a junior high school Spanish teacher, always pushed me to speak, to say what I want to say, and to get on the stage. My mother too. They both, desde chiquita, were always so supportive of what I wanted to do in the performing arts space, and that was staying after school for play rehearsals and cheerleading practice and softball and handball and all the things that, yeah, girls, maybe some. Oh, are they racing out there in France?
My
Woo!
motorcycle over here. Passing by. Should have muted myself. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is what makes it real, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the realness.
There's real sound.
Um, you might hear some sirens, gunshots. I'm in New York City. Who knows what's going to happen behind me? The window's open. Hey, so I was saying, my mother and father, I have to give them tremendous shout outs for empujándome, allowing me to, yeah, do the, like you said, the girly stuff and the not so girly stuff. And for allowing me the liberty to do that. But then I also take it back to influencers in the comedy space. When I was little, Mija, I often get asked, like, why did I venture down the road of sketch comedy? Because most people go down the road of stand up comedy. It's just it's quicker, it's more instant. You got your audience right there, and you hit the road and you do your shows, you get your special, boom. Sketch comedy, first of all, is not such a playground for girls. There's not that many of us out there. So when I saw them, when I was little, they became my heroes, and they being Gilda Radner, and even Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, um, Molly Shannon, the SNL girls that I saw in the 80s when my brother was babysitting me. So basically, the deal was this. On a set, picture this, Brooklyn, 1980 something, right? My parents would go out on a Saturday night. Eddie, watch your little sister, make sure she goes to sleep at a decent time. Yeah, 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 man. Don't worry about it. Have a good time. See you later. All right. Parents are off at the Copacabana, or wherever they went. And my brother would say, okay, Rach, you get to stay up late, but you got to watch Saturday Night Live with me. And I'd be like, okay, I don't know what that is, but let's go. So I was seeing these characters like Eddie Murphy portray Gumby, and I didn't necessarily know what all the jokes meant, but I saw this characterization. The people that were introduced up top in the opening credits look completely different during these sketches where they brought us into this incredible imaginary world where Gumby was ghetto. like, and, and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood was the hood. Like that's like Gilda Radner reporting as Rosanna Dana on Weekend Update in the late 70s, early 80s with that hair. All of that was an inspiration. I was like, look at these girls. I could freaking do that too. How many voices do I do during the day? I impersonate every family member. I love putting on my mother's clothes and her shoes and my dad's shoes and wigs. And I pretend to shave in the bathroom with my father as a kid, pretending I'm a little boy. Like all these things that I didn't really know why I was doing. And my classmates were like, yo, this chick is loca for real. Actually, it was part of that influence that I saw growing up and the desire for me to also move the needle for girls in comedy. All those girls that I saw doing it, like the ones that aforementioned, I was like, they're breaking barriers, and I'm going to try to figure out how I could do the same thing in my own little sphere. And if I move the needle 1 degree or minus 1 degree or 10 degrees or 100, it doesn't matter. I'm moving that shit, you know? Oof, I'm getting a little like snaps right now. Maybe it's the cafe
Yeah.
bustelo, but
Aplausos, aplausos.
I feel like our, women in comedy are so severely underrepresented. And
Mm,
it's part of the reason, like, I wake up and I ask myself, what can I do today to move that needle? The Hilarious Show, which is my all female variety show, we perform off Broadway every 3 months. We're trying to get out there to, like, it's not only to give these women a stage, because I feel like if you really want a stage, you could find one. It's the
mm,
collective. It's the collective force when we come together and we showcase our solidarity for females in this space and how much noise we have to make more than the boys. It's magical.
mm.
So those women that I watched growing up, and I guess I gotta shout out my brother too, that
Because
bum.
he
I
made
gotta
you, he made you
because
watch the show.
that was the bribe. I would get to stay up late if I watched the show, and it really put me on this sketch comedy path of this gilded path that I love because of what they did before me and how I'm just trying to live up to that and maybe go a little bit beyond.
Mm,
But I am definitely making an effort. Other influencers or influential people in my life, I have to shout out some college professors too, Mija. because in college I decided to declare a minor in Latino studies. Because I don't know what happened, mija, but in college I started becoming friends with a lot of Latinas. I went to a school that in downtown Brooklyn in Flatbush, where there was more diversity than where I grew up in Sheepshead Bay. And I was like, oh, look at these girls. We all look alike. We all got the hair. We all shop at the beauty supply store on Flatbush Avenue. So I also appreciate those professors like Doctora Maria Perez y Gonzalez, Dr. Virginia Sanchez Carol, Professor Antonio Nadal. These are all iconic leaders for the Latino movement in New York City. These people that I mentioned were part of the Young Lords movement. These people were breaking barriers for the City University of New York, CUNY, here when there weren't a lot of Latinos on campus. They were printing materials and mobilizing us and forming marches and standing with our flags tall on the top of Boylan Steps, which is one of the buildings in the center of campus at Brooklyn College. So I'm very appreciative for those professors, Professora Irene Sosa, who was doing incredible things before we were like a thing, for TV executives. She was out there talking about Latinos and identity and the need for us in mass media and writing books about it, yo. So all these people, I hate to say, I couldn't just give you one answer. It's this,
Yeah, this is your Oscar speech before you go to the Oscars, Rachel. You just gave me your list. I'm gonna, and if you forget any of these people when you get an award, like I'm gonna play this podcast
I
episode
could
for
listen
them.
to this episode.
Yeah,
Can I just can I just play this snippet
yeah,
at the podium? Like,
yeah.
can we cue to the Mija podcast, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it's exactly it. That's so incredible. I'm so excited to hear all about all the people who influenced you in your life, and that you give them so much credit, because I feel like you're someone who I really admire in this space. And when I found you as a creator, I was so excited to work with you for La Cabina specifically, because I felt like you really embodied Latinidad, but also like that blended New York experience. And hearing you talk about it, it's just like I know where it came from. Like it's so genuine. It's not like something that you're putting on. It's something that really comes from the heart. So I really
Thank
want to talk
you.
about how you've been inspired for your work as an actress, and we can talk about La Anastasia and La Cabina. So just some backgrounds. The character was written as gringa cabaret dancer girlfriend. That was it. But you brought her to life, okay? You brought her to life. She was the
Oh,
girlfriend of
I love
this
this.
one character that we had written in, Senor Gonzalez, an elderly gentleman who starts dating her after his wife dies of cancer. She's supposed to be one part cliche, one part basic, but you added the best part, which is that she's heartwarming and kind. And you did it so
Oh,
well. This character had so many dimensions because of you and because of what you brought to the table as that voice. And, we're going to play a clip, and I'm going to just like we're gonna play a clip, and then the clip will play in the edit. Kiara, you can add this in. The clip is the scene where where she convinces Elena by practicing Spanish, where she like reads the note or that she wrote it out, and then she like
I
tries really
love
hard with the accent.
it.
Um,
It
so
was so fun.
yeah, no, and seeing that you speak Spanish, how was it? How did it feel doing that in character, like playing the kind of girl who doesn't speak Spanish, who's trying really hard to speak Spanish to like tell someone that they care about them? How did that feel?
Mija, I had so much freaking fun. This was a really unique challenge because
Mhm.
I felt like I was doing the opposite of what I usually do, right? Which is get on camera and be proud of the Latinidad, let the coño come out every now and then, like, ay, Dios mío, coño, like, be Latina, Rachel. That mixed bread that sometimes comes out with the like Yiddish curse or the Spanish curse word. But this time, it was like, no, Anastasia, Anastasia. No, like get rid of that accent. There's no Latinidad here. But when I was reading this script, I kind of felt bad for her. I had a little bit of sympathy, empathy for her. I really felt that she wanted Senor Gonzalez to live out the rest of his years happily. We all know those people who lose their significant other late in life or whenever it is. And I'm sorry to say, but we as humans, we need companionship. So I felt that. I felt that void with Senora Gonzalez. And then there were those episodes where him and his daughter were, fighting over this. And I almost got mad at the daughter. So I wanted, right? Like I wanted Anastasia to convince her to really pull at that heartstring because I felt that. If I were Anastasia in real life, I'd be like, girl, like, I love your dad. Like, I know you can't see me. You're hearing me in this cabina, but I'm trying to communicate in this handwritten letter that I worked so hard on, even though you speak English, which was so funny to me. 'Cause the script was just so lovely.
She
It
was
was
like,
so
you know,
much
I
fun.
speak English, right? Never mind. And then she continued. Yeah, we had so much fun writing it.
Oh my
Yes.
God, you guys, if you have not heard La Camina Telefónica, I promise you, I'm not just saying that because the creator is opposite me right now over virtual this meeting, but it is so good. Um, so yeah, for me, it was a fun, healthy challenge. And I just wanted her the heartwarming side of Anastasia definitely came about organically. I didn't have to try hard for that cuz once I locked in who she was in my head, everything else sort of I was just talking as her. I was acting as her,
You became
and
Anastasia. You embodied this girl.
it's so cliche, right? Actors say it all the time. I became Anastasia, you know, but Pero la verdad is, when I had those headphones on and I was in the studio with you recording, you damn right I was Anastasia. I loved her. I wanted to be her as much as I could for that moment. And I also wanted like the love to come across that she felt for Senor Gonzalez. And through Anastasia, I think you also got to see the love between Senor Gonzalez and his daughter,
Yeah,
Elena.
yeah.
So she was a pivotal character. I'm so appreciative for just you guys giving me the opportunity. I had so much fun, and it was a very challenging, again, healthy in my career. Now that I look back on the trajectory, like as actors, we're handed our projects and we're like, yeah, got it, got it. Let's go, Tiger. Go get him. You're great. But I stepped into the booth actually like, wow, this is the first time I'm doing a project like this where I got to be opposite Latina, you know?
The other
We're not
you, the
doing
other side of you, like the other part of you. Yeah.
Rachel Straussovitz,
Yes,
basically.
Rachel Straussovitz. That's who you were for the show.
So thank you for asking me that question because to this date, it's a part of I guess it's a notch on my career belt that I'm very proud of.
Oh, I'm
And it's
so
still out
happy.
there. It's
Yeah,
going to be on Spotify forever and ever.
it's there. It's there. If you want to listen during Hispanic Heritage Month, it will be featured again. So you
Great
can tune
idea.
in
Oh,
now.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I'll share the little featured thing that they're gonna do for it. Um,
Please do.
yes. I have a few more questions. I do want to
Sure.
ask you about any other role that you would want to highlight of your acting work because I know you've done quite a lot of different things, but I couldn't pinpoint anything else that maybe you would want to share and you say like this was a role that I really really appreciated that they can check out, listeners.
Oh goodness. This is where I get all like shy. I'm like, oh my God, you want me to shout out my projects? Okay.
Shout out
Oh,
Latinos Out Loud for sure. That's like one of the best podcasts that it's one of my favorite New York podcasts about Latinos. Like I tune in systematically.
thank
But what else
you.
could they listen to or check out from you?
Thank you so much for saying that, by the way. Latinos Out Loud is my baby. And what we share in common with Mija is that the Webby Awards have also recognized us. Shout out to you guys for being mentioned. And we were also a 2021 and 2023 Webby nominee for Best Comedy Podcast, which is just, I'm so appreciative. I also want to shout out the Webbies, period, for inviting me to also be a judge. I'm part of the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences, so I get to see
Me
so
too.
many.
We're
Woo
judges together.
woo! I love it. Judges unite.
Yeah.
Listen, it's so great because we get to see and well not see but we get to hear amazing content that we like wouldn't normally be fed through marketing,
Yeah,
right? Like so I
totally.
love the exposure. um back to the question, other projects aside from Latinos Out Loud. Yeah, Michelle Rojas is Not Okay is another podcast series that I was cast on, and that was in partnership with Broadway Video and Audible, and I play a few characters there too. And the podcast series stars Dasha Polanco and Ruben Blades, the Kid Mero, D Nasty, so many great comedians and performers. So check that out. It's everywhere. A couple of other things you can see me on. I mean, I'm proud of some of the stuff that maybe came and went. And I'll bring something up. There was a beautiful special on PBS called COVID-19 From Performers to Spectators. And it was an in depth look at certain performers based in New York City and how their careers had to take a strong pivot because of the pandemic. And so I was one of the featured artists, and that's out there on PBS, on the Arts Channel, and on the website, on YouTube. Um, and then of course there's Bring the Funny. I love my comedy projects because I get to be Rachel La Loca, unquestionably, undoubtedly. So Bring the Funny is streaming as well, and that's on NBC and Peacock, where my multicultural sketch comedy troupe that I was a part of, Room 28, was a contestant, and we performed a very funny Latino sketch called Pitbull is My House Guest, where Pitbull was one of the actors' house guests because they went to high school together. But the thing is, living with Pitbull is that he comes up with a catchphrase about everything. So imagínate. Check that sketch out. Other things, I mean, just check me out on rachellaloca.com or on my Instagram at rachellaloca. There's live performances. There's Instagram stories. There's a bunch of stuff. Just come check it out. You never know what you're going to get.
I love it. Thank you so much. And now we're coming to the end. We do a speed round of questions. So just answer like as quickly as you can. Don't even think about it, okay? So, number one, what language do you swear in when you accidentally touch a hot plate?
Spanish.
What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Song you've had in your head this week?
Oh gosh, it's a Danny Go song. It's for little kids. It's called "Cause Summer is for Chillin'." Ooh 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 ooh. It's so annoying. I bet it's in your head right now. "Summer is for Chillin'" by Danny Go. Look him up. He's a great artist for kids.
Okay. What's your last Google search that you're comfortable sharing?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I am not comfortable sharing this, but I can't tell a lie. I broke out in this like skin rash on my shoulder.
Oh no.
So I've been self-diagnosing myself after looking up what this like skin rash on my shoulder is. I've diagnosed myself with everything.
Okay.
But it's okay. I actually went to the dermatologist and we're good. It's just an
You're
allergic
fine.
reaction to something. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So WebMD.
But it's gross. Girl,
Shout out
look,
to WebMD.
it's so gross. I feel like a mutant, like my
Oh,
shoulder's
no.
mutating. It's so gross. And it's just on one shoulder. Whatever. It's because in New York, we live shoulder to shoulder, and you don't know, like, what kind of freaking, crap is on somebody else's shoulder and, like, germs and shit. Anyway.
It was Pizza Rat.
Oh, it was Pizza Rat. Ugh, damn you, Pizza Rat.
What is it? Okay, so next question. What is your most embarrassing dream that you've had as a kid growing up? Like an
as a
embarrassing
kid.
dream. Yeah.
Oh,
Not
wait. I was going to say, this is going to get X-rated quick. Are we okay with that, Mija?
No. Yeah, everybody interprets it in a different way, but what is your most embarrassing thing? Like the thing that you wanted to be growing up that if you could have been, you would have been. What was your dream?
Right away. I mean, I went to a special high school in Flatbush, Brooklyn that I had to take a test for because this guy thought she was going to be a doctor. Meanwhile, I'm squeamish. I can't even see the sight of blood. But truth be told, all my friends were going there, so I applied for the medical science program. I got in because, this girl is smart, just saying. And I cannot be a doctor. I don't know what I was thinking. No way. Like, the money sounds nice and the doctor license plates and all that, but I could never stick somebody with a needle. What are you, nuts? I could barely stick myself with anything. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking.
A doctor. You'd be a really funny doctor, though, if you were.
I could be a doctor if I didn't have to do anything with blood or teeth or bones or private parts or feet or hair.
Or do the job of a doctor at all. Like
basically. Yeah, I can't clean up after any of those things or caca or number one. So if you find me a doctor position, I'll go to school in my 40s. Great, but I can't do any of the above.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel. Tell us where we can find you.
Yes, Mija. Thank you so much. You can find me across all the socials, los redes sociales, at Rachel La Loca. It's the Jewish way of spelling it. Rachel. Some people are Ael. Not me. Rachel, La Loca, LALOCA, across everywhere. And I'll give you my phone number if you want. It's 978 Latinos. Yes, 978 Latinos. Give me a call. No big whoop. I'm here to talk. And yeah, you can find me on the Upper East Side. You could also find me performing in New York City. So please check out the socials. I got a show coming up in November. I got a couple of holiday shows coming up. I'm going out to Washington, D.C. to represent for us Latinos during Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx Heritage Month or whatever you call it. Latina EXYZ. So follow me. Catch me if you can, as they say. I'm catchable.
You're catchable. You're catchable. One last thought for the
Catchable.
Mijas out there. What's your advice to Mijas who are scared to take the leap and start talking on a mic or going on a sketch comedy or doing their art? What is your advice?
If it is in you, mijas, you must let it out because keeping it in is not healthy. And we want to hear what you have to say. We, the world. Everyone wants to hear our stories because they're so colorful and beautiful and unique to us. So why wouldn't they want to hear it? I was terrified of the mic and public speaking. People don't really know this about me, but when I started my corporate career, I was always the girl like, "Oh no, I'm not going to talk in the meeting. No. I will equip you, the salesperson, with everything you need. But me, the marketing girl, no. I'm going to be in the back." And I would turn red as this shirt, if somebody would call on me in the boardroom, like, "Rachel, why don't you share the statistics on how many toothbrushes Latino households have on average?" And I'd be like, But then I don't know what happened, Mija. Something just overcame me where I was like, no, this fear is bullshit. This fear is BS. And if I don't speak my peace, my brilliance, no one will ever hear it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel. This is amazing. We can stop recording
Thank
now.
you, Lori. I love you guys.